Today I am going to talk to you about a resident of Camas Valley that happened to have some extraordinary experiences during World War II. Many of you have seen the movie The Great Escape, starring Steve McQueen, James Garner, Richard Attenborough, and Charles Bronson, among others. While this movie is a lot of fun and great entertainment, it is based on a real event. The events as depicted in the movie have been given the Hollywood treatment, and some of the truth has been modified, but it is altogether a decent attempt at capturing the reality of war. The other part of our discussion is going to focus on the Camas Valley connection to these events. My grandfather, Leo Frazier, happened to be imprisoned in the P.O.W. camp portrayed in the movie, known as Stalug III.
Cause such a terrible stink in this Third Reich of theirs. The thousands of troops that could well be employed at the front will be tied up here looking after us.
With its compelling blend of Hollywood polish and historical fact, The Great Escape helped to create a lasting tribute to the ingenuity and courage of the real-life men who never stopped fighting, even in captivity.
Unfortunately, we were shot down, so we are both grounded for the duration of the war.
Well, you speak for yourself, Colonel.
It is such an exciting movie. It's a great story on screen, and I think it's convinced a lot of people to go and look up the real history. It convinced me. It was the film that got me interested in pursuing this historical event.
The Great Escape had certain Hollywood flair, obviously, a little over the top, but you can understand why, for the drama.
In a day when we don't have many heroes, it's kind of nice to see some heroes resurface. And while there's a part of it that just instinctively says, yeah, but that's Hollywood, there's the other part of us that says, like I did, if even a fraction of that was true, and it was, then here's something to sit up and take notice and maybe find some inspiration.
To the colonies. Independent.
Of points that were made in that clip that I would like to reiterate. First of all, I hope that this discussion leads you to take another look at your own family history. There are remarkable stories in everyone's family, and while not all of them are as dramatic or as recognizable as today's topic, they are remarkable all the same. Secondly, I hope that every one of us can take some inspiration from the people that we look at today. I am not presenting my grandpa as some sort of a hero for all of you to celebrate, but rather as an example of the regular, everyday folks that through necessity are able to rise to any occasion. Those people are around us every day. We just need to realize it. Leo Frazier was born on April 12, 1917, in Aurora, Sevier County, Utah, to Robert Verness and Agnes Ann White Frazier. Agnes was born and raised in Beaver County, and Robert was born in Rockport and was raised there for some time before his family moved to Oakley. Leo graduated from South Summit High School and attended Brigham Young University, where he graduated with a degree in finance and accounting. It was now 1940, and the Selective Service Act was reinstituted on September 16, 1940. When Leo registered, his draft number was 89, meaning he would be an early draftee. Not wanting to be a lowly enlisted man and hoping to avoid the Army, he set about applying to officer candidate school. The major requirements for OCS was a college degree and an appointment from a government official, usually a senator or congressman. Leo wanted to join the Navy, but his physicals showed that he needed to have his tonsils removed. By the time this was completed, the only spot available was in the Army Air Corps. On April 28, 1941, just over 7 months before the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Lil boarded a train for Oxnard, California, and flight training school. After 2 months of beginning level flying lessons, Lil washed out as a pilot due to imperfect depth perception. However, he still had options in the Air Corps. He was given the option of becoming a navigator or a bombardier on the medium or heavy bombers. The pilot, co-pilot, navigator, and bombardier were all officers on bomber crews. Even though he had a degree in finance and accounting, Lil hated the kind of math that a navigator was required to complete on every flight, so he decided to try to become a bombardier. Of course, in true military fashion, Lil was assigned to navigator training. After a few months on furlough, Lil was ordered to report to Ellington Field, Texas for navigator training. He was in Houston, Texas on the morning of December 7th when the shocking news reached him. On April 1st, 1942, Lil and his class graduated from advanced navigator training and officially joined the ranks of the Army Air Corps. His first assignment was with the 97th Bomb Group, where he and his crewmates would be flying B-17 Flying Fortresses. B-17 had 10 crewmen, a pilot, co-pilot, navigator, bombardier, radio operator, flight engineer, top turret gunner, ball turret gunner, 2 waist gunners, and a tail gunner. At this time, all of the bombers were being flown to England via a southern route to Brazil, across the ocean to Africa, and then north to England. This was taking too much time, and it was decided that a shorter northern route would be optimal. Lil was assigned to fly with the 1st Squadron to blaze this northern route. The plan was to fly to Newfoundland, over to Greenland, to Iceland, and then Scotland before heading to bases in England. This flight was a disaster, with a major snowstorm stalking in the airfield in Greenland. Planes were diverted to a secondary airfield, but 7 of the 9 ran out of gas before reaching it. They were forced to crash land on Greenland among the ice. We're not going to go into the saga of My Gal Sal at this time, but there are copies of a Life magazine article that you are welcome to read. There are a couple over on the table and in the booklets over there. I encourage you to take a moment and take a look at it. It is a pretty amazing story, but not the one we are focusing on today. This is the actual My Gal Sal that Lil was flying on when he crash landed in Greenland. It has been restored and is now hanging in the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, Louisiana. After the Greenland fiasco and rescue, Lil was again sent home for a short furlough before being assigned to a new bomb group, the 44th, and assigned to Shipton Airfield in Norfolk, England. And this is Shipton, and on the map you can see where Shipton is in England. He was also assigned to a new plane, the B-24 Liberator. Here you can see some pictures, the one on the left. And here you can see some B-24s from the 44th Bomb Group making a parachute drop, as well as bombers lined up for takeoff. And you can see the ambulances lined up in case of any injuries. The 44th Bomb Group was known as the Flying 8 Balls. You can see their unit logo there in the top corner. And it was a pretty famous bomb group among those that were assigned to England. Some of the highlights of that union, it was stationed in Shipton for most of the war. It was one of the first American bomb groups assigned to England during the war. The 44th set a number of records for American bomb groups during World War II. They flew more missions than any other group flying from England. They sustained the most losses of any 8th Air Force group. There are several other amazing facts about this group, and this memorial stands in Grove, Oklahoma, the original home of the 44th Bomb Group. During Leo's first 10 flights, he crash-landed a second time. After a bombing run again, his plane ran out of gas, and they crash-landed in Wales, in a field in Wales on January 3rd, 1943. The airplane was named the Texan, and all 11 crewmen were unharmed, no serious injuries, and all returned to duty. On March 8th, 1943, Leo would partake in the final mission of the war, his final mission of the war. Leo's 11th mission would be his last for the war. A small group of bombers was assigned to bomb the railroad yards at Rouen, France. Initially, Leo was not assigned to go on this mission as part of his regular crew was unavailable. The remaining crew felt that this would be an easy mission due to several factors, including having fighters along for protection, and it was not far into France. And as soon as air crews reached 25 combat missions, they were sent home and rotated out. So this was supposed to be an ideal mission for them to get an additional mission without too much danger. As you could see there in the left on this slide, you can see where the blue dot is where Rouen is. So they scraped together enough free crewmen to fly the mission. 18 bombers were meant to take part, but one bomber aborted on takeoff due to mechanical problems. It was a relatively easy mission, but the fighter planes didn't show up, and 2 of the 17 remaining planes were shot down. The alarm to bail out of the plane on Leo's plane was sounded, and his exit point was the wheel well of the front landing gear. The plane started into some violent spins, and Leo was more or less thrown out of the wheel well. Leo wrote, "I do not remember pulling the ripcord nor falling, as I was partially unconscious due to the lack of oxygen. When I came to, I was floating toward the ground, and as I looked around, I saw 2 German fighters circling me. I thought they were going to use me for target practice or come close enough to spill my chute, and I was mighty frightened. When he hit the ground, there were German soldiers waiting for him." Leo was slightly injured. He thought he had broken his left arm, and he had a cut above his right eye. He spent 2 nights in an army hospital near Rouen, where the Red Cross made contact, and he met 2 airmen from the other plane that was shot down in his flight. The 3 of them were the only survivors from the 2 planes. Leo was then sent to Sagan, Germany, now Zagon, Poland, and Stalug III, which is located on that right-hand map where the blue dot is. When he arrived at Stalug III, he heard the infamous German greeting, "For you, the war is over."
What were you doing, Reservoir?
Well, like I told Max, I was trying to cut my way through your wire because I want to get out.
Durchsuchen Sie ihn.
Bitte.
You speak German?
Jawohl, Herr Oberst.
Wire cutters.
Jawohl, Herr Oberst.
I have had the pleasure of knowing quite a number of British officers in this war, and I flatter myself that we understand one another. You are the first American officer I've met. Hills, isn't it?
Captain Hills, actually.
17 escape attempts.
18, sir.
Tunnelman, engineer.
Flyer.
I suppose what's called in the American Army a hotshot pilot. Unfortunately, you were shot down anyway. so we are both grounded for the duration of the war.
Well, you speak for yourself, Colonel.
You have other plans?
I haven't seen Berlin yet, from the ground or from the air, and I plan on doing both before the war is over.
Are all American officers so ill-mannered?
About 99%.
Then perhaps while you are with us, you will have a chance to learn some. 10 days isolation hills.
Captain Hill.
20 days.
Right. Oh, you'll still be here when I get out.
Cooler.
These are the 2 telegrams that Leo's parents received in Oakley. The mission was on March 8th. The first telegram, here on the left, reported Leo missing in action, was received on March 15th, and the second telegram on the right here, reporting him as a P.O.W., was received on March 22nd. For 2 weeks, his parents didn't know what had happened or if he was alive. A couple of notes on Stalug III. Stalag is a shortened version of a German word meaning prison. Luft is the word for air, and 3 was simply the designation for this camp. Germany did something with the POWs that was unique at the time. Each branch of their military was responsible for their counterparts' prisoners, so the German Air Force was responsible for the Allied Air Force prisoners. That is why the Luft is added to the name of the camp. It designates it as an POW Air Force camp. Ultimately, this would be beneficial to the prisoners at the camp. They were treated somewhat better than Army prisoners. The rules you can see there. The garden was required so that the prisoners could contribute to their own upkeep and provide some of the food required. It will come back to bite the Germans, as you will see. Also, I want to point out the seriousness of the first 2 rules. Break the rules and you will be shot. The drawing of the camp here shows 1 compound. Ultimately, there would be 4 of these compounds built as Stalag III. So you can see the deathly seriousness of the rules. But despite this, for the most part, camp life was boring. The prisoners were allowed a number of distractions. They were allowed to play sports with the equipment being provided by the Red Cross. The Americans played a lot of baseball, and the British played soccer. A theater building was built, and plays, debates, and concerts were all performed. Most of the cooking was done by the prisoners, as was any of the cleaning that could be done. The one part of life in this camp that wasn't boring, however, was the escape plan.
We can't destroy the dirt, we can't eat it. The only thing left to do is camouflage it. That's as far as my thinking takes me.
Can they teach you promptness in the RN?
You'll never believe it, but I think I have the solution.
The problem is somehow to get rid of this tunnel dirt over the compound.
Well, of course.
Would you mind? Now, you fill these bags with the dirt from the tunnel. Then, wearing them inside your trousers, you wander out into the compound, where you pull these strings in your pockets. Out come the pin.
Eric, it's good.
All you have to do is kick it in. Unless you're a complete fool, the ferrets will never see a thing.
It's indecently brilliant. What do you think, Roger, eh?
We'll try it first thing tomorrow. I already have. It works.
Mac, this is what we'll do.
Present from Tom, sir.
Ah, thank you, Nemo.
So as you can see from the clip, that's how the gardens came back to bite the Germans. The dirt that was being excavated from the tunnels was a much different color than the dirt on the surface of the camp. Everything shown in this clip actually took place. The little bags in the trousers, mixing the dirt in the gardens, all of it was true. Digging the 3 tunnels, they were codenamed Tom, Dick, and Harry. Digging the tunnels was a pretty remarkable feat. The ground was composed of sandy material. It was a massively long distance to dig. As you can see in this sketch here, is not shown in this sketch, there were microphones buried in the ground to detect any underground digging. Keep in mind that there were no shovels, no tools, except for some improvised implements. You can see on this sketch how long the tunnels were compared to an American football field.
This is a full-size replica of the tunnel in Stalug III. So what we have here, everyone, there is the sand. Okay. And there is the tunnel. That's exactly the size it would have been. Now, they had to make the tunnel in, the sand was really just running everywhere like water. And what they used was the bedboards from their beds, right? And they would put them on the ground like this, and they'd put them up in the on the sides. Yeah, like that, yeah. Okay, so I see like this, yeah. Yeah, like that. And you see how the shape of it, it's cut. So each board just fits in like that. It's like,
you're building kind of lining to the tunnel.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice finish. Lovely.
Nice finish. This is good sort of, yeah, exactly. And the idea was that they had to cut everyone the same, and they didn't have a saw, so they had to make a saw. Now, one of the things they had was in their sort of Red Cross parcels, they were sent gramophone records, and they used to cut the records up to make things like the compasses they needed to guide themselves after they escaped. But inside the gramophone record players was the spring, which they'd wind up, and that would play the records. And that spring, that metal was very valuable.
Useful bit of metal.
Useful bit of metal, because what they then did was they cut with a little file, which they nicked from somewhere, they cut saw teeth, and they used the little saws they made.
That's ingenious, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely ingenious. And it's all about, doing stuff, but they had plenty of time on their hands, and what they could do then with those saws is they could cut,
And they're doing all this in total secrecy as well. That's the extraordinary thing about it.
And there's thousands of these boards.
Yeah, all the beds.
Now, the thing is that they had to fit the boards This was sort of 100 meters long, over 300 feet long. So you had to get right the way down to the face of the tunnel.
Come on, Hugh, get in there. Let's have a look. That's what you're famous for.
So they had to make a trolley. They used these milk cans to make the wheels and bits of reinforcement bar they nicked. And so what they would do, to get to the end of the tunnel, there's a rope that they would have to pull on. Here's the rope. And they'd go in here and they'd pull themselves.
And I'd be pumping oxygen down.
This is the actual site of the camp today, and the picture on the left shows a recreated tunnel with the homemade trolley. Notice that the wheels were made of powdered milk cans that came in the Red Cross parcels. The picture on the right here shows the surface above where the tunnel was, as well as the perimeter fence, and the rock in the background designates where the end of the tunnel came up. It was about 5 to 10 feet short of where it was intended to be.
How soon's that air pump going to be ready?
Oh, I'll have it for you tomorrow, Roger.
You're badly behind schedule, said you go, Cobber. How's it coming, Danny?
No good.
No good?
Today, 3 times.
Really, all right?
As you can see, tunnel did not come without its risks. Before the escape actual took place, the Americans were transferred out of the compound into a different camp. So when the escape took place, no actual Americans actually took place in the Great Escape. They were all British or from the Commonwealth, British Commonwealth in the escape. So the escape. The escape took place on the night of March 24th, 25th, 1944. It was intended that 200 prisoners would escape that night. And the interesting thing to remember about the escape is as soon as the tunnel broke through the ground, through the surface of the ground, the escape had to begin. When they broke through the surface, they discovered that the tunnel was short about 10 feet of their intended target. So when they first planned it out, they had planned for one prisoner to escape every minute until all 200 had escaped. Because the tunnel was short, they were only able to get one prisoner out every 10 minutes. The 77th prisoner was seen exiting the tunnel, and because of this, the others did not have much of a head start in their escape.
Los, aufstehen! Hände hoch!
The memorial to the 50 that is at the side of the camp. Before we play this clip, this is some of the men that were in the camp that helped dig the tunnels, helped with the escape, but did not actually escape. Just the audio and video is a little rough, but it's fast talking fun. To Camas Valley.
But the 50 murdered M
So back to Camas Valley.
Those who had decided not to take their chances in the tunnel.
If I had gone, I probably wouldn't be here now. I'd have missed a wonderful life. But then so did 50 others. I feel I've been the lucky one. Did I deserve to be the lucky one? I don't know.
So back to Camas Valley. Leo, as we mentioned, was transferred to a different camp as the Russians got closer and more prisoners were taken. They sent him to a different camp. From a bit of the newspaper story about you can see the story about the 10,000 who were sent to the new camp. Anyway, on April 29th, 1945, Leo and his fellow POWs were liberated by regiments of Patton's Third Army. Leo was sent back to the States as fast as the bureaucracy of the military would allow. On July 29th, 1945, he married Roberta Horton of Oakley and was then sent to a military hospital in the state of Washington to undergo treatment for ulcers and malnutrition. He retired as a captain with a Purple Heart for injuries suffered during the bailout and with the Air Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster. Leo and Roberta bought a home in Oakley and then purchased the Weber Mercantile, which is now Ken's Cash, from Leo's parents. They sold the store in 1971, and Leo served as Summit County Assessor for about 12 years before he retired. Leo and Roberta had 3 children, Blair, my father Blake, and Dana. Leo passed away in 2003 at the age of 86. So, one of the reasons we are focusing on veterans is because of the planned Camas Valley Veterans Memorial. And I say planned in the loosest terms because the details are not finalized yet. One thing we would like to work for, or ask for your help and ask you people to share, is to fill out our questionnaire and to offer your opinions on what you'd like to see. There is not a site selected or a plan selected yet for this memorial, but on behalf of the Camas Valley History Group, I'd like to say that we are working on collecting names and details of veterans from the Camas Valley. There are there are some ideas and plans here on the screen about possible and some memorials that exist. Kate Wynn is heading up a committee about this memorial project, and if you are interested in this and would like to help out or offer opinions, contact her and she will get get you some information. This is, again, the memorial to the 50 and the refrain of "Lest We Forget." And at the end of the movie, it does offer a memorial to those 50 who died. So, that's Leo's story. What's yours? We would love to hear, maybe not today, but from many of you about your service memories or histories, anything that is relevant to that. But before we move on, we would like to recognize any veterans that are here today. So if any veterans are here today, please stand up.